Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and I am super excited to be back doing another video for Simon Says Stamp. Today we are going to be working with a new set for STAMPtember. This is a collaboration release with WPlus9 and Simon Says Stamp that is called Holiday Trimmings, and it's got some little trees, some little ornaments, some ways to decorate both of them. Totally super cute. So I'm using the stitched circles from Simon Says Stamp just to give myself a circle, very light line and pencil on my cardstock, and this is because I'm going to do a wreath ornament. Seen them on Pinterest a bunch of times. I don't have time to make one in real life, so we're going to do it on a card. So I'm using the Fog ink from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm erasing my line as I go. If you stamp this ink over pencil, you cannot erase it. So, but I cannot fake my way through a correct circle, so I have to do it this way. If you can fake your way through the circle, then that's totally fine. Do that. You won't need to do the outline first. And then I'm masking to get the ornaments in between. The reason I'm using Fog is because it's a wonderful light gray ink, and I know that I can Copic color over top of it, and you're not going to be able to see it. So today we're going to be doing no line coloring. And we're just going to stick with green, red, and they're gray but silver. That's the idea. So with the Copic coloring, because we want the ornaments to look realistic, we want them to have a reflective side and a shadowed side. We're going to start by making a half moon with our darkest color. Now, if you watched me color before, you know I don't normally start with my darkest color, but for this, it just makes sense. Then with our next darkest color, we're going to color in on just the right-hand side. With the third color, you're going to go to the left and to the right, but you don't want to go all the way to the edge until you get to your lightest color. The reason this is because reflective light comes around from the back side of things, so leaving that lighter edge gives it a more dimensional look. And then you want to leave a little half moon wherever your light source is going to be hitting the object. So I always color with my light source in the top right. So the shadowed side will be to the left and the highlight will be on the right hand side. With this particular one, I go very light-handed in the beginning with my shading. I just get nervous about getting too dark, so I go very light-handed the first time around. The second time I go over it, and I always go over them twice, I kind of branch my color out a little bit more because I know more of what it will look like and where I want that color to be. So you don't want to leave, I mean, you could have a glaring white highlight. You really could. I prefer not to do that. So try to leave the little half moon. If I don't like the way that that looks, or if it's not bold enough, you can go back in with your colorless blender and draw right on top of that half moon and give yourself a really great highlight. It's also good if you just got a little heavy-handed maybe and just ate your highlight up. Then you can just go back in with that colorless blender and it's totally fine. So I do that actually for all of the ornaments. You'll notice with the red that I've used several more colors than I did with the green. This is just a preference thing. If you have a red color combination that blends really well and you're happy with it, then use that. Sometimes I struggle with blending my mid-tone into my lightest color. So here I just added a couple of extra colors. With no line coloring, some things you want to be aware of. There is no black outline to save you. I am acutely aware of this when I'm doing no line coloring because I love a black outline, but it's also like my little saving grace because then if I get heavy-handed or I don't really like the outline that I have going, then I have a black outline and it completely saves me from anything looking odd or misshapen. No line coloring, you don't have that. You're taking your little comfort blanket and you are pitching it. Like you just go for the gold. It's not as hard as it looks. You just have to be a little bit more patient and then a little bit more conscientious about where the edges are of your objects. But it's such a cool look. Do you know what I mean? It's completely different look than that black outline. I still love a black outline, but sometimes it's nice to try something different. So I'm going to show you, like I said, the three colors. Here for this one, I wanted to have silver. I'm using cool grays for that. You could definitely use warm grays if you wanted it to be a more brown gray, but I wanted like a really traditional silver. So I'm doing it the same way, but the highlight's going to be a little bit different because the way that the light is going to hit it is going to hit it right on top, because the right hand side is covered up so that highlight will not continue. And again, you'll see how I went really light the first time around and then start to kind of branch out because I know where things should go once I have a good base layer down. With a wreath like this, because the light is coming, the direction of the light is never going to change, but your highlight and your shadows will. And this is just because of the way that the light hit them. So most of the time the shadows are going to be on the right hand side, but there are some areas, like in this case, where that ornament falls behind, the shadows are going to be more to the bottom and the highlight is going to be more on the top. Also, I found it super helpful to just kind of outline the ornament above mine until here. This silver ornament should have been on top, and I had already outlined the one next to it thinking that that one should be on top. Thank the Lord for the colorless blender. So I just went over it with a colorless blender, and you want to let it dry in between. You'll see me wagging my little finger around there, and then go back over it until you're sure that you can cover it or you've pushed back the color to wherever you want to do. At this point, the pink line was so faint, I was pretty confident in my ability to cover it even with the C1. So I just went ahead and started fixing the ornament so that it would in fact sit on top. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this in case A, you make the same mistake, and also to show you that everybody makes mistakes. Even those of us who do this all the time, everybody makes errors, and usually there's a way to fix them. So because I'm super into anything that's three-dimensional, I'm going to go ahead and add a shadow, and I'm just using a C3 and a C1 for this. Again, following that directional light, so it's coming from the top right, the shadow would be cast to the bottom left. And for my darkest part, I'm using the C3, just little lines of it wherever the shadow would be the darkest. And then I'm going to go back in with the C1 and just kind of blend them out. I am not touching it to the color because if the ornament was hanging on the wall, it would be up away from the wall, so the shadow wouldn't be directly touching it. Also because I don't want to commingle my colors. When you go over a darker color with a lighter color, sometimes you risk picking up that darker color, and I didn't want any red in my background. Before I move on to the next step, I'm going to add some clear Wink of Stella because everything should be shimmery, but especially at Christmas time. And then I'm just going to reinforce that highlight with a white gel pen. I wanted to do some embossing just for, some more like shimmer, glimmer, glam, however you want to talk about it. I like sparkle in my Christmas. So there's a little bow that's included in the set, and I thought that it would be adorable just kind of sporadically stamped around the wreath. So I'm using Versamark. I pre-treated it with the embossing buddy bag just so that my embossing powder doesn't stick anywhere I don't want it to, and then stamping in the Versamark, and I'm going to heat emboss them all at one time. It goes quickly enough that I don't have to worry about it. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Versamark pen. There's a brush nib and a bullet nib. I'm using the bullet nib to just give myself a line at the top of the wreath of what it would be hanging on. I use a scrap piece of paper and some silver embossing powder to just really make them, just to really highlight them. I love the way metallic embossing powder looks, even though I really only use it during the holiday season. I still think that it's totally beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. And then afterward, I had noticed that I didn't get the best pressure with my line. And so just so you know, once it's cooled down, you can go back over it and then heat emboss it again. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, so I can get a good solid line that I'm happy with. I always brush away any extra with either, if there's just a little bit at my fingertips or a paintbrush I have laying around. Then I'm going to use my Mini Misty to stamp the sentiment. I love the font in this set. I cannot even tell you. It just like screams elegant Christmas. So I'm going to use Black Simon Says Stamp ink. This is one of my favorite inks to stamp sentiments in. It's super crisp. I never had any issues with it. And I'm going to stamp that right in the middle of my wreath, that Merry and Bright. I cannot tell you how much I love that font. And then that's basically the whole panel. I mounted it up to the top on some green apple cardstock from Simon Says Stamp onto my card base, and then that completed the card. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.